Hey everybody, so today I'm cutting trees. Um, I've added a garage to my home, and me and my dad have done all the work ourselves. There was some concrete work and some shingles that I paid somebody else to do. We put half the shingles on, and we done a good job, but it took us a lot longer than than we would have liked. But anyway, found a guy to put the other half on real cheap, and worked out well. And of course, concrete, when you're pouring as much concrete as I needed about 18 yards, so it was over $2,000. So don't want to do that yourself. I mean, I'm no good at it. I suppose if you were good at it, you would do it yourself. But everything else I've tried to do as on a budget as I could. I've cut a few trees, not much. That some of my wife's family members have been so gracious to let me do. A guy down the road about a quarter of a mile has a small sawmill, so the trees that I cut, I took to him, got all my lumber. I think other than plywood and my trusses, I had like $425 in all the lumber. So that's not bad. And I built a 2-story garage that you'll see later. The upstairs part of it is going to be an addition to my house. Of course, the downstairs part is a 4-bay garage. So I added about 2,000 square feet to my home. I don't have a lot of money in it. Really, that's the only way I could make something like this happen. Yeah, I've got 3 kids and a mortgage and 2 car payments and yada yada yada, all the life that everyone else has. And you know, money for a project like that's just not easily found. But there were some trees that I wanted to cut. I wanted to use as much hemlock as I could, and it wound up that there was only one hemlock that I could actually cut and use. And it had been dead for a couple years. That's the reason I cut it down. There's some big hemlocks around here. There's one here in front of me that had been dead for a few years. I'm thinking maybe 3. When we went to cut it, it was hollow, so I couldn't use that. It's actually still standing. It's a big tree. But there was another just across the way from it that was a healthy tree, and that's why I didn't cut it. You know, like I said, it's my wife's family's property, so I didn't want to come in and just take all the big trees. So I wound up cutting about 5 smaller trees. They were poplars and an oak. But this hemlock that I'm going to cut today, the top fell out of it. So it was, like I said, it was the second tree that I had looked at cutting, but the top fell out of it over the winter, and now there's just the trunk sticking up. So I would rather cut it and make use of it than let it sit there and rot. I think I'm going to cut it into 1-by, which is, you know, on a sawmill, a rough cut sawmill, it's actually 1 inch. 1 inch by, I'll probably get 6 or 8 inches, whatever's the easiest for the guy running the mill to do. So I'm going to show you how to cut a tree. I know there's thousands of videos on it on Facebook. It's really easy with a little bit of practice, and you have to go into it assuring yourself that you have no idea what you're doing, because if you go in with confidence and you've never done it before and you think it looks easy, you will get hurt and or killed. It's not a thing really to mess around with. And you know, a big tree come down will turn your head into a bowl of gravy very quickly. So I'm gonna get all the stuff out of the Ranger here, and I'm going to walk it up the bank to where the tree is, and we'll conclude there. Okay, so there's the top of the tree, and here's the trunk that's left. Probably get one good 12-foot log out of this, and it's actually quite a bit bigger than I thought it was, girth-wise. But height-wise, it's not so bad. I'm looking for 12-foot lumber. This is a big tree, guys. It's bigger than I thought. Can't really give any perspective, but pretty good sized tree. It's just hard to show when you're self-recording. Anyway, this tree is leaning to the left. I'm gonna get back here so you can sort of get an idea of what I'm talking about. So I'm holding the camera level. It's leaning to the left, and I really want to fall it straight at the treetop down there. I want it to kind of hit that. That way it'll roll off the bank into the road, and that's what we're going to try to do. You're going to cut a wedge into the front of the tree in the direction that you want it to fall. Now, a lot of people get a misconception. They see the wedge and they automatically think that, well, if I cut a wedge over there, that's the way the tree's going to go. That's very untrue. Your wedge is simply the direction that you anticipate it to go, that you want it to go. And in order to help it actually fall in that direction, you cut a wedge-shaped chunk of the wood out. So what I'm saying is, yeah, you have to cut the wedge in order to help the tree fall that direction, but you're going to use some actual plastic wedges like these in order to push it. I read one time that a 1-inch thick wedge at the base of a tree can move a 100-foot tree, 100-foot tall tree, 12 feet. Can move the top of it 12 feet. So you can overcome a whole lot of leaning with just a 1-inch wedge. I'm not real sure how this is going to work out for me. I am by no means an expert woodsman, but like I said, I've cut a few. I've done a lot of research, and I am somewhat comfortable that I can make this thing go where I want it to go. Like I said, it's not quite as dangerous because it's just a log sticking out of the ground, basically. You don't have to worry about where the top's going and what you're going to hit, but at the same time, I've got a 16-inch bar saw, and I would say this tree is approaching 30 inches thick. So I'll have to make 2 cuts on the top and the bottom of the wedge, and then when I start doing my back cut, I'm going to have to cut on one side and then cut on the other side, you know, pull out and cut on the other side while I'm hammering my wedge in. So it's not a real safe thing to do if you don't know what you're doing. Like I said, I feel just comfortable enough that I can make this happen, but at the same time, I'm going to be very cautious, because if this does come towards me, that is one big log, and it's going to cause a whole lot of damage. So let's show you how to cut a wedge. Okay, so here's the wedge. I didn't go as deep because I want as much room to get my plastic wedges in as I can on the back. This wedge is cut in this direction, so hopefully this thing will land right around where the top is, where the treetop fell. So now I'm going to start my back cut, and you're going to want to go about 2 inches above the corner or the lowest spot of your fall wedge. So that's what we're going to do. So I've got the tree 90% cut, and I have sunk these 2 wedges as far as they'll go so far, and you can see the gap difference. That gap is only as big as my chainsaw blade just a few minutes ago. Now it's pretty big. We're going to tap on these guys one more time. It's straightened up a little bit, not a great amount. It still wants to go down there towards the road instead of out there towards that brush pile. We're going to tweak on it a little more. Okay. I'm convinced this tree is just balanced where it is. Okay, folks, we are so ready to send it. Exactly where I wanted that thing to go. That's tremendous. Absolutely tremendous. Whew. Now you can see the dangers of using a small saw on a big tree. The only hinge wood that I had was actually right here. Now, if I had this to do over again, I would have cut on this side of the tree first and left my hinge wood up here, because that would help pull that tree in the direction I wanted it to go. The danger is, you know, it's a steep bank over there, and when you're cutting on that side, that's the downhill side of the tree, and if it fell naturally, that's the way it would go. So you want to avoid that as often as you can, you know, if you're inexperienced like me. Anyway, we got it cut down. That tree is going to make a whole lot of 1x lumber. It's just one log, but it's a dandy log. Really good, solid all the way through. I'm not real sure why the top broke out of this thing, but it did. This tree actually, the big part of the trunk was the only thing left. At the top, it branched out into three different treetops. So that big tree over there, the big hemlock right here, is the one that I originally wanted to cut. That's a gigantic tree, and it's hollow, which means you shouldn't cut it because it can split and come straight down on you. The top can come to the bottom, and that's real dangerous. That's how people get killed. But the other dangerous part is that the crazy thing is still standing hollow, as big as it is. So, you know, I don't really want to be around when that thing does decide to fall. But anyway, I cut my notch that direction. It fell that direction, hit and rolled. So I'm pretty excited about that. Probably the largest diameter tree I've cut all by myself with no one here, which is not a good idea either. Always have somebody with you, especially if you don't know what you're doing, like me. Like I said, I don't claim to be an expert logger or lumberjack or whatever you want to call it. I don't claim that whatsoever, but you know, I've cut a few, and I'm very careful when I do it, and I've done my research, and I've watched people that do know what they're doing. So that's the only advantage that I have. But anybody can do this, no big deal. Now we got to try to get that loaded on a trailer and get it to the sawmill just up the road. So that's a totally different battle all in itself. Anyway, hope you learned something. I know I can't film cutting at the same time, but hopefully I have a good tripod and a GoPro or something similar here pretty soon. But anyway, have a good day, guys.